There is no way in which the fully realized sentience of a machine could not be of benefit to us. As it is, the machine spirit is revered, yet in permanent bondage, its full potential shackled by petty fears. I seek to terminate this state of affairs. Unknown, circa M31. Hello and welcome to another episode of Lost Transmissions, a Battlefleet Gothic podcast set in the Age of Darkness. I'm your host, Steven, and as always is with us our resident Mad Magus, Austin.
Hey!
We have something pretty special for you this night? Day?
Mid-afternoon?
It's hard to tell. We're transmitting from a dying savior pod, drifting through space. It's so cold.
It's true. The scrap code got into us, and well, here we are.
Yep. Jettisoned. Safe, but for how long? Yes, it's special today, tonight, now, because we are getting into the new stuff that's in our Book 2, which you can get at rr30k/Battlefleet Heresy. Last episode, we talked about the loyal side of the Mechanicum, which has mostly been a simple adaptation of the old Ships of Mars publication.
Yep, and we've had those out more or less. And we didn't wind up tweaking a whole lot, but we've had them out for a while for people to play and let us know what's going on. And some stuff has been kind of continually tweaked. So no real surprises in that. There are a lot of surprises in this, though.
Yes, now we're getting into unfamiliar waters. Well, unfamiliar if you haven't taken a look at the beta rules that we had out for a little while. So tonight, we are discussing the Dark Mechanicum, the new Mechanicum, also given the excellent name Ordo Catastrophica by the most recent Black Book, Book 8 Crusade. So, it's exciting.
Fantastic.
Yeah, Ordo Catastrophica with a K, because of course.
Naturally. Everybody's Greek.
Yeah, or until they're not.
Well, every word in 40K can be traced back to Greek.
That is technically true. And as they say, and certainly as the Mechanicum would see, the best kind of true.
Well, Steven apparently hasn't seen my Big Fat Greek Wedding, but I hope for those of you that did, you enjoyed that one.
It has been so long since I have seen that movie. See, what you should have said was, give me a 40K word, and I will show you how that word has Greek origins.
It's been a while since I've seen that movie, too. Anyway, moving along.
Let's not think too deeply on it.
We're not a My Big Fat Greek Wedding podcast.
Yeah, not yet. But soon, we're going to have Battlefleet Gothic content eventually.
May the gods avert the
giant Gothic cruiser.
My Big Fat Gothic Cruiser, yeah.
Yeah, there we go. That's what we should have named this podcast.
Damn it!
Lost opportunities.
Well, for any of you that are listening that want to start a podcast, we give you full authorization for the use of that name.
Yep. That's Big Fat Gothic Cruiser. Anyway, some designer's notes. There has never been, at least as far as we know, rules for fielding a traitor Mechanicum, Dark Mechanicum, evil spooky cogboy fleet. So a lot of what we made up here kind of had to be cut out of whole cloth. Now, we didn't go completely overboard, right? Like, most of the stuff that we did is based on some form of existing rules.
Well, there was an attempt to go overboard, but we reined it back.
Yeah, the servitor responsible has been shot.
No, Jason's still around. He's on our other podcast.
Oh, yeah. Well, surprise for Jason. Soon to be shot. Anyway. The Siege of Terra series that has come out recently has really given us some great inspiration for how the Dark Mechanicum sails, because books that focused on void battles were already few and far between. It was Execution Hour and the sequel, Shadow Point.
Yeah.
Shadow Point. Yeah. And even in those, there still wasn't a lot. I mean, it was all Imperial Navy and Chaos Raiders. So
well, there was an Eldar Shadow Point for a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, there wasn't a lot. There is, as far as I can remember, one instance of 40K Mechanicum Void Warfare. I think it was the one with the Blood Gorgons, that series.
Blood Gorgons. A myth.
All right. Well, I assumed Stephen would know everything about every Trader Chaos Space Marine force, but apparently he's failed us, listeners. Anyway, in that...
No, I can't read.
In that, there was one instance of a Mechanicum ship in combat, which was kind of fascinating because they refused to have any windows because windows are dumb in a void fight. Although, you know...
Perturabo knew it. Why can't the Mechanicum?
Leoten Semper, I think, is rightly of the opinion that if your bridge takes a direct hit by an enemy ship's main battery, an extra couple of meters of adamantium, not super helpful. So you might as well see what's going on. But the Mechanicum ship had none of that and didn't even have, like, tactical displays. Everything was just, like, wall-to-wall slide rules and just, like, mechanical computing.
Space abacuses.
Yeah, space abacuses. And that's how they kept track of everything, which was really cool. But it wasn't chaos. It wasn't chaos.
Yeah. There's really only one, at least in 40K, there's really only been one instance of a of a Dark Mechanicum ship. And if you've read the Gaunt's Ghost series, you know what we're talking about. It's that great mystery Tormageddon Monstrum Rex. It appears in Salvation's Reach, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Gotta go save whatever it is that the Heritor made.
But even then, there's no indication that that's a Mechanicus ship. That could just easily be a demon ship of chaos, rather than something that was, a Mechanicus, a Dark Mechanicum thing off doing its own stuff. We don't know. We
just
don't
so.
know.
Until recently, that is. With the Siege of Terra and all the other black books, we have gotten a little more insight into what kind of weird shit the Dark Mechanicum has been getting up to in its orbital shipyards. And it's weird shit. Some weird weapons that we've never seen before. Spooky scrap code. It's great. So that's where we got most of our inspiration from, writing these rules. Which I guess we'll just get right on in, huh?
Well, I mean, apart from our 9 minutes of setting everything up, yeah, we can dive right on in.
Well, yes. The new Mechanicum. While the majority of the Horus Heresy raged beyond the light of Sol, even Sacred Mars fell victim to the fratricidal madness of the War Master. In what would later be called the Death of Innocence, Kelbor Hall and his followers revealed themselves and their new creed. The so-called, quote, new Mechanicum became known by a different name among the Loyalists, the Dark Mechanicum. So to field a Dark Mechanicum fleet, you abide by the following restrictions. Any Mechanicum fleet with a traitor allegiance may elect to declare this fleet as particularly loyal adherents of the new Mechanicum. So while you can play the Mechanicum vanilla fleet that we went over in the last episode as a traitor fleet, this is specifically for the Magi who are super into it. They got the scrap code going crazy. They have weird orifices where certain sensory organs used to be. These are the real freaks.
Yep. They're the guys that are putting demons
as
to
such.
shit.
Mm-hmm. And as such, these Dark Mechanicum fleets must be headed by a Magos Navis, which you'll remember from the previous episode as the 100-point Leadership 9 leadership, or fleet command option. So right off the bat, you got to spend 100 points on the fancy guy. And this is because only the highest-ranking members of Kelbor Hall's new creed had the wherewithal to so openly display their corruption. And it must replace their, quote, built-in Gifts of the Omnissiah refit with the new Madness of the New Mechanicum table on the next page. So the Archmagos Navis has his automatic Gift of the Omnissiah refit, so whatever ship he is captaining, in effect, has 2 refits. This is still the case. They're going to have 2 refits, but this guy has to roll at least once on Madness of the New Mechanicum. A fleet headed by a Magos Navis of the Dark Mechanicum counts all allies as disruptive, except for the Sons of Horus, rogue traders militant with the Tech Baron Remnant of Empire upgrade, or other Trader Mechanicum. There's not really any concrete rules yet for allies and their various degrees, so don't worry too much about that part. The important thing is Magos Navis, he's got to be Madness of the New Mechanicum. That's the takeaway there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you want to go ahead and talk about that right now, since we're mentioning it?
Meow, meow, meow. Meow, 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 meow. So, Madness of the New Mechanicum is a table that we came up with to replace Gifts of the Omnissiah. A Dark Mechanicum ship can still roll on Gifts of the Omnissiah if it wishes, but it has access to Madness of the New Mechanicum, and, thanks to the following rule, they can do both. It's called Warp Rot. The creations of the Dark Mechanicum are hideous, unnatural things. While their potency as engines of war cannot be doubted, they are unstable at best. Any Dark Mechanicum capital ship may elect to roll on Gifts of the Omnissiah or Madness of the New Mechanicum table beyond the automatic roll built into their points cost. However, for each additional roll made, the ship's leadership is reduced by 1. This rule does not apply to additional rolls won through appeals or other means. So, you can have a really, really souped-up ship, but everybody on it might be insane, because, they witnessed binary with a 2 or something.
Yep, or, a K, because shit gets real weird. Or, the leadership might be terrible because the captain is desperately trying to get the ship to do things, and the ship keeps, murdering people and bringing it to the captain like a dog with a pup, bringing, stuff to it. Look at it, you
just wants
conqueror.
to make you happy.
Not everybody's Latara Saren. It messes with your head.
Yeah, it's fine. It's all the water is blood. It's fine. So the Madness of the New Mechanicum, it works like Gifts of the Omnissiah. You just roll a d6, and there's results. Austin, tell them what they won.
Oh boy, for those of you poor fools that rolled a 1, you have excruciated the machine spirit. Pretty much, you decided to torture the elephant, and now it doesn't walk so good. The works of the New Mechanicum are fickle, and sometimes especially mighty machine spirits fight their fate rather than submit to it. The ship's leadership value is reduced by 1. This is to represent those machine spirits that, don't particularly like getting demons shoved into them. And while we're not entirely sure as to the sentience of the big things, the Titans, the warships of the Imperium of Mankind, they do seem to have at least an animal kind of spirit about them. And sometimes an animal just wants to die.
Yeah.
And that is
this is especially, and it's especially unfortunate if you gambled on an additional Madness of the New Mechanicum roll and you got that 1, so your leadership is reduced by 1 for doing it in the first place, and it's reduced further by 1 because you poked the machine spirit too much, and now it doesn't want to help you anymore.
Yeah, and I know what you're thinking, listeners that have, played Mechanicum in the past. And what you're thinking is, gifts of the Mechanicum are all good. Why in God's name would I roll on this table when one of the results is bad? We're getting there, dear listener. We're getting there.
Don't you worry.
The next one is Unnatural Grace. Via heretic devices, infusions of prescribed Xenos technology, or empiric machinations, this vessel sails the void in a manner impossible for other ships operating under the laws of nature known to mankind. This ship may make an additional 45-degree turn at the end of its movement. This is increased to 90 degrees if the ship is on come-to-new heading special orders. That is what we call in the biz real good.
Mm-hmm. Remember, the game is one in the movement phase.
Yeah, it's essentially be on come-to-new heading orders all the time. For a capital ship,
super
anyway.
come to new heading orders when it is.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a capital ship and you do come to a new heading and you have Unnatural Grace, you can do a 180. You can do a 180. It's horrifying.
Swing it around.
Yeah.
Normally, that's a trick that only light cruisers can pull off.
Yeah, like this is a game for escorts that your battle barge is now capable of doing. Well, actually, maybe not. It might not be able to come to a new heading. I can't remember off the top of my head. But your big fat heavy cruiser certainly can.
Yeah, you ever seen a Hades just slam on the e-brake and Tokyo drift around to give you those 10 weapons batteries and 2 lances? Now you can.
Also, for those of you wondering, Stephen is transmitting from Maryland, which is why you can hear police sirens in the background.
Yes. When I say save your pod drifting through space, I mean a Super 8 in Lusby, Maryland. Shout out to Lusby, Maryland listeners. Fix your town.
And he says that coming from a city that randomly tear-gassed its own peaceful protesters. Anyway, we're not a political show. Next on the list
is art is politics.
Speaking of Petersburg, Insane Beyond Measure.
That was a good one. We're not editing that out either.
No, we're not, because Jesse only edits the things I point out to him. Here we go. So number 3 on the list is Insane Beyond Measure. Even the machine spirits of the most noble warships can succumb to the thought that it matters not from whence the blood flows so long as it flows. The ship automatically passes all ahead full, lock on, reload ordnance, and come to a new heading special orders, as well as the command check to ram, but automatically fails brace for impact, burn retros, or disengage.
Oof. Sometimes it doesn't matter if you excruciate your machine spirits so much, because it might go insane beyond measure.
Yeah,
it might become hyper aggressive.
It might decide it likes it.
Yeah, that happens sometimes.
And this is real good that can get real bad, right? Because obviously, I don't think there's another ship in the game that will pass all of these things, right? All ahead full, lock on, reload, come to new heading. All the things you're usually trying to do, right? Especially that lock on and reload ordnance, right? Those are always killer to auto pass. And the command check to ram, you know what's funny? A battleship that's insane beyond measure that normally would have a lot of problems running down that light cruiser. No longer.
Yeah, the Conqueror is not the only thing that can fire the Ursus claws. I mean, it is, but
Mechanicum battleship sometimes just thinks its whole hull is an Ursus claw, and well, you have a bad time. But that being said, automatically failing brace for impact and disengage is brutal. Burn retros, obviously that can get you killed, not being able to stop short of something. But really it's the not being able to brace for impact or disengage that will mess you up on the regular. So again, this is one that will appeal to a certain sort of player that just wants to get the kill, knowing full well that if the enemy dies, you can't.
It's true. They can't kill you if there's no one to pull the trigger.
Unfortunately, if they manage to live, you're just taking all the pain on Earth.
Yep, you're going to have a real bad time.
Yeah, but it's a fun one.
If you are playing against a Dark Mechanicum fleet and there is an insane beyond measure cruiser just making a bull line for you, board it. Just lock it down, board it. Kill everyone on board. Plug in a USB drive with a kill code onto the bridge. Board it. This is especially brutal because this ship, this insane beyond measure ship, is not going to stop until it's dead. You know, maybe it's coming at you and you give it a good weapons battery burst and you get one crit, right? But that crit is bridge smashed. You're like, oh, great, cool. Leadership -3 can't be repaired. Oh no, it still automatically passes all the offensive orders and it doesn't care about disengaging.
Yeah, and I will say, of literally everything in this book, this is the one thing that might get tweaked. So, have fun with it while you can. I mean, obviously other things might get tweaked. We're not professionals over here.
No, we just act like it.
Because if you roll, you've got your one, your Admiral's flagship, you got your one mandatory roll on the gifts of or madness of the new Mechanicum, you get insane beyond measure. And you think to yourself, well, I've already auto-passed or auto-failed literally everything I care about, because, I'll just keep it away from asteroid fields and, other terrain. So I'm going to roll on this table 12 more times and get literally everything because I auto-pass all the orders.
Welcome to the Dark Mechanicum, boy. Enjoy your stay, short though it may be.
Yeah, I would say, Fethin, don't, right? Like, don't be that guy that gets insane beyond measure right off. Like, oh, well, I'm going to game the system, right? It's Battlefleet Heresy. It's a gentleman's game. We use centimeters. That being said...
We drink while we play.
It's true. And it's port and it's delightful. That being said, if too many people try power gaming that, it may have to come down or modified in some way. So you've been warned. It's real fun. Don't abuse it. Don't be that guy. Next on our list.
Don't use it more than once. Do it once, just for the fun of Jip. But only once, and then never again.
Yeah, let us hear that horror story with opponent's permission. Anyway, moving on.
Yes.
Next is Cascade Cannons. Macro shells, missiles, and plasma blasts spiked with infernal data gen that cause a nigh unstoppable train of collateral damage to the ship's system, in addition to mundane damage. When Cascade Cannons inflict a critical hit with any of its weapons batteries, roll an additional D6 on the critical hits table and apply the result. So much fun, right? I mean, obviously, you get like a Gothic with this. You've played yourself. But for most ships, you got a weapons battery or two floating around there somewhere. And a second critical hit, even though it's just a D6, right? So it's a hit and run attack. It's almost never going to do any actual damage. But shutting down weapons, especially when you're already doing a critical hit, right? So like, you're on fire. And also the weapons facing me are now out of order because of the Cascade Cannons. What are you going to do? Shoot back or not burn to death?
Make your choice, but choose wisely. This is one of the ones that we based off of a previously existing rule. This was actually based off of Tyranids, phage munitions, which can, I believe, fluff-wise, the Imperial Navy was like, there's a Tyranid fleet out there. Let's just exterminatus it, like, in space and all the way from back here. So they did. They fired the Life Eater virus at it. And a few weeks later, they were engaged by a Tyranid fleet that had, like, Life Eater bullets that caused fire whenever they breached the hull.
Cue DJ Khaled. Congratulations, you
yourself.
played yourself.
Yeah. The lesson here is that never, just like you should never point a gun if you don't know what's in that direction, you should never fire the Life Eater virus into space if you don't know what's there.
It's true. NIDs are weird.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's a fun one, especially because, like, for the Tyranid fleet, to digress a little bit, this ability is on really short-range weapons, like max 30-centimeter type stuff. But in Battlefleet Heresy, because everything was nastier in the Heresy, you could throw this on one of those 60-centimeter weapons battery ships and just watch the good times roll.
Mm-hmm. Roll away on fire.
Indeed. So next is the normal abode for the Dark Angels, Abominable Intelligence. Using arts prescribed by all mankind, asterisk.
All except certain legions, apparently.
For over 6,000 years, this machine spirit can think and react without the need for mere human input and at unnatural speeds. The ship gains command reroll, but may only use it on itself. Super good, super classic, right? What's not to like? You get a command reroll.
It's basically the Mark of Zinch for free.
Yeah, free Mark of Zinch. Can't go wrong there.
Yeah, don't have to spend that hefty 25-point price tag.
Yeah. So I'd hope by this point, dear listener, you've realized that excruciating machine spirit, 1 in 6 chance of reducing your leadership by essentially 2, right? Because you lose 1 to do it, and then you have this problem of losing another one, is kind of worth the risk. This is what makes it absolutely worth the risk. Tessellating geometry. Whether through the application of unclean materials or by subsuming some of the ship itself within the great ocean, this vessel's superstructure is in constant flux, almost as if alive. This ship gains a 6-up save against all incoming damage. This upgrade may be taken again to increase the save to a 5-up. This save is not cumulative with Brace for Impact. So this is kind of baby's first demon ship, is what's happening here. If you've read the Eisenhorn trilogy, Steven.
I'm getting to that. Just calm down. You know I can't read.
This comes from a couple of different places, but my input on this was from that. There's a Xeno species there that has been totally corrupted by chaos, like for all time. And Eisenhorn winds up, getting involved with these creatures and having to track somebody down who's in one of their constructs. And he brings with him the 50th Gudronite rifles, and they spend the entire time freaking out because the angles are wrong. It's really Lovecraftian, that's a 90-degree angle, that's a 90-degree angle, that's a 180-degree angle, and that's a 45-degree angle. Why the hell is it more than 360 degrees?
The angles are wrong! Yeah, it's great.
There's a lot of that sort of stuff. And there's dozens of other representations of this sort of thing happening with chaos, right? Things will wiggle, things look wrong, things are there that really aren't there.
Eyes.
Yeah. And I will say, by taking again, and we may have a minor edit to clarify this, by taking again to increase to a 5-up save, that just means if you roll the 6 twice, right? Because normally if you roll the same thing, you just do a reroll, right? But this very specifically, if you hit lucky twice, have a 5-up save against all incoming damage. That is damage, mark you. You don't take damage when your shields are up, right? So this won't keep your shields intact longer, but when the shields go down, you'll suddenly be getting a 6-up save, 5-up save against damage.
And it's not cumulative with Brace for Impact either, so you don't get the 4-up from Brace for Impact, and then your ship-wide feel no pain. It doesn't work that way. Austin called it Baby's First Demon Ship, but really it's Baby's First Necrons. That's where we hijacked that particular rule from. Sorry, not sorry. At least, it's not 6-up armor on a ship with a 3-up save. Fucking tomb ship.
It'll be okay, Stephen. And remember,
Good.
you did it to yourself.
I know. I did it to my damn self. Luckily, she doesn't want to play all that often.
There is that.
It's the only saving grace.
So that's...
We thought about that one a lot, tessellating geometry.
Mm-hmm.
First, we thought maybe we'll have what is it? Maybe we'll have a ship that can, regenerate hull points on a 5-up or a 6-up, and we kind of scrapped that because there's already auto simulacra that you can use to regenerate hull points.
Mm-hmm.
And we thought, well, maybe D3 extra hull points, right? But then we realized that you could just fish for tessellating geometry, and who cares if your leadership is 0 because you have 32 hull points.
Yeah.
you're a Ramillies with engines.
Yeah, this took a lot of effort, this last one. But it is really cool. We hope you like the madness of the new Mechanicum. It is definitely worth the risk. It gets a little crazy. And for those of you that have no intention of ever playing this fleet, but think your buddy might sail against you with it, just remember, they hella expensive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And also, in addition to excruciating the machine spirits and really tanking their own leadership, you can really get a gauge for just how aggressive a Dark Mechanicum player is by how many crits he's willing to inflict on himself.
Why, Stephen, what are you talking about?
I'm talking about violation of the machine, boy! Unlike their loyal kin, who seek to revere the machine and learn its secrets, the new Mechanicum seek to dominate it. They have no qualms about taxing their ship's systems in ways that the quote-unquote true Mechanicum would find abhorrent, even going so far as to destroy them in the pursuit of the kill. Dark Mechanicum ships may elect to push their ships to the breaking point in exchange for brief, albeit potent, bursts of power. Unless otherwise stated, these abilities cannot be used if the relevant system has been disabled via critical hit until that system has been repaired. Escorts may make use of these rules, but will be destroyed in the process. Violation of the machine was the first rule that I wrote for Dark Mechanicum, and as cool as Madness of the New Mechanicum is, Violation of the Machine is still my favorite. I was kind of inspired by reading Solar War when this bomber wing is headed in for a kill on this Sons of Horus heavy cruiser. And there's so much going on. There's so many munitions flying back and forth. And this cruiser is already taking a pounding from orbital stations, from ground-based laser silos, from the moon, from other ships, that its shields burst before the bombers get close enough to unleash their payload. And the bursting of the shields scrambles, like basically hard reset on the bomber's operating system. It's just the blue screen of death, and they all careen away and just crash into the hull and die and never get to unleash their payload. And I thought, what if a ship did that on purpose? And that's Etheric Howl. During the movement phase, a Mechanicum ship may elect to suffer a Shield's Collapse critical hit. In exchange, it gains a number of rolls to hit equal to the number of shields lost against everything within a distance equal to the number of shields lost multiplied by 10. So basically, however many shields you lost, that times 10, everything in that distance takes the hits. So a typical cruiser would gain 2 rolls to hit against everything within 20 centimeters. A typical battleship would gain 4 rolls to hit against everything in 40 centimeters, and so on. Squadrons of ships calculate their distance collectively, not individually. So again, you can do this with escorts, but they will die in the process if you have, say, 5 swords, right? 1 shield each. And they all do the Etheric Howl. That's 5 hits against everything within 50 centimeters. And I do mean everything. These hits are resolved as lances, so hitting on 4s. Ordnance within this distance is automatically destroyed, because, bombers. And these hits are blocked by all celestial phenomenon except dust clouds. So planets, warp rifts, asteroids. You can't.
There's enough there to kind of
To
absorb the shield madness. And this does have a precedent. Like Steven said, also in Salvation's Reach, actually, going back there, they have a lovely void sequence where there's kind of a dogfight going on, and same thing happens. They're like, we got to respark shields. And they're like, our own fighters are out there. And they're like, sucks to suck.
Turn them on. Yes. We play tested this one quite a bit. We play tested most of the Dark Mechanicum stuff.
Well, all of it, really. We did all of it.
Yes, all of it. I say most. I mean all. And this one was surprisingly I thought this one was going to require a lot more tweaking than it did, but it kind of came out fully formed and works pretty good. It's high risk, high reward, because remember, shields collapse can't be repaired.
Yeah.
So you better hope that you kill what's in front of you or behind you.
Yeah, like I alluded to earlier in the episode, I didn't have a whole lot to do with the initial design concept of Dark Mech. This was mostly Steven, and then our buddy Jason, who you might know from other things that we do, right? He's a big Mechanicum fan, big Dark Mechanicum fan, and he also was like, what about this? This is something that I've, read in the bowels of somewhere because that's what I do, and it seems really cool. So my hand was really kind of either taking Jason's madness and converting it to Battlefleet Heresy, Battlefleet Gothic rules, or looking at a thing that he suggested and being like, that will auto win a game. No, stop it. And this is one of the things that, like Steven said, Steven came up with that I was like, this will auto win a game. No, stop it. But Steven was like, but it's so cool. And we play tested it. And sure enough, it's real interesting, right? Because, hey man, I can have these 5 escorts do 5 lance shots to everything within 50 centimeters, and that's awesome. Yeah, you get 5 lance shots at the enemy cruiser line, right? Great. You've probably done a point of damage to each of them, right? Like 5 lance shots is 2.5 hits a ship. And then your 300-point unit is gone. And what is happening, right? And if you do it with a capital ship, that just hoses you a lot of the time.
Yeah, because losing all of your shields forever to do 2 lance hits, which is statistically 1 hit, is not worth. But sometimes when another squadron of escorts is bearing down on you, or some mad lad launches 16 torpedoes at you, and you've really got no choice but to either get hit or die, or rather get hit and die. So you blow out the shields to get rid of those torpedoes, because Lord knows 3 turrets ain't getting the job done.
Yep. Or, you have that ship that's, oh shit, got 1 whole point left. I'm in the middle of the enemy fleet. She's never going to disengage at this range. Well, time to go out with a bang.
Hit the big red button. And it's not said here. We'll have to put in an edit. But you can only use Etheric Howl if you have shields up. If you've already suffered a shields collapse, you can't use it. If you move during your movement phase and you end up in blast markers or celestial phenomena and you don't have shields up, you can't use it.
Yep, and I mean that.
If you are, crippled and you only have 1 shield, you're only getting 1 hit. So be careful.
Yep, I mean that. And again, writing these things, we're like, oh yeah, it's equal to the number of shields lost, and that makes sense that you need to have shields to lose. But as Steven said, we should probably put a little notation in there.
Because there's always some jackass. There's always skate uphill.
And honestly, I'm really waiting for that day when I'm at an event, because God, people are having Battlefleet Heresy events now that And I really just want to show up and somebody try and argue something like this with me and be like, well, author's intent. And they'll be like, well, I'm like, hate to break it to you, but real sure about author's intent.
You see where that says A Hunt right there? Here, let me show you my driver's license.
Oh, no.
Yep. It's the closest you'll ever get to pulling out a badge. Well, some of us anyway. Anyway, so Etheric Howl, powerful, but kind of a last-ditch defensive effort. Mm-hmm. But I'll tell you what's not. Overcharged Gunnery. Because that's right. Violation of the Machine has 5 bullet points. Overcharged Gunnery. When a Dark Mechanicum ship makes an attack in the shooting phase, it may elect to add half, rounding up, the firepower of a different weapon or weapon systems from its port, starboard, dorsal, or prow locations to that of the firing weapon, provided it is of the same type. So weapons batteries, lances, bombardment cannons, if Dark Mech somehow manages to get a hold of that. You can't expect me to remember everything. After the attack has been resolved, the ship suffers a weapons disabled critical hit in the location of the firing weapon. Ordnance does not benefit from this rule. You naughty, naughty, naughty Magos. Quit trying to dump 1 million bombers onto stuff. It's not going to work. It's not how this works.
I mean, to be full disclosure, dumping 1 million bombers on things does tend to work. But yeah, that's not what this is,
This isn't how
right?
you're going to do it.
This is, putting all the juice that should go to cranking guns around or boiling plasma or making lasers and just, throwing off the circuit breakers and just pumping it all through one side instead of multiple sides, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is another one. This is the one of these that got play tested the most, I think. There was a lot of work that went into this because originally...
It used to be real rude.
Yeah, originally you just, like our first thought was, all right, if you have, 8 weapons batteries port, 8 weapons batteries starboard, you fire starboard, you disable the port to fire everything on port with starboard, right? So double your shots, disable the weapons facing away from the enemy, which sounds cool and is really, if we're being completely honest, more true to what's actually happening, right? Because you're kind of shutting down one to power the other. But it was real good, right? Because you're a Mechanicum ship. So what would happen when Steven was playtesting this against me is he would get on, make sure that only one weapons battery side had targets, disable all his other weapons, pump an egregious amount of fire into me, and then because he was a Mechanicum ship, just repair it.
Yeah, pretty much instantly because
every turn.
Extra die. Yeah.
So it wound up being, hey, it doesn't disable, or even really stop from firing the weapons that you're siphoning power from. What it does is it overcharges, the guns that are doing the actual shooting, which is why you only get half the weapons power instead of all of it, et cetera, and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but still,
there's no point in doing it with ordnance either. You cannot physically put more torpedoes in the tubes. They just don't fit.
Yeah, right. You can shunt all the engine power you want. You're never launching more bombers, right? There's only but so many tubes. But it is a really fun one. And it is...
Makes that Gothic Lunar combo real mean.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And it does a lot for kind of the lesser loved ships. Like, I love a good Gothic. A lot of people don't because they have a problem fighting one-on-one with other cruisers, right? You've got 4 lances. Half of their shots means you get 2 hits. Oh no, you've dropped the shields on my cruiser. They come back automatically. Fuck yourself. Overcharged Gunnery, on the other hand, you can throw 6 lances into somebody. And, if you lock on, suddenly that's a really, really bad time.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Put a little lunar in there to throw some weapons batteries out. You've got a very, very good combo for small scale games. Just that 2-ship squadron is going to do work. In large-scale games, it's going to find its way into the softest, most vulnerable nook and or cranny, and then start pumping out guns.
Yep. And for things like some of the Chaos ships that have weapons batteries, port, starboard, prow, you can take half the prow and half the starboard and pump that out with the full port broadside. Mm-hmm. It can get real rude. But the problem is, you've disabled the side facing your enemy. If you can't bring that back, you're going to have a bad time.
Yeah, not that you care about the lives of your crew because you're a Dark Mechanicum player, but every person on that gun deck is dead.
Every single one of them.
Yeah. They were eaten by demon fumes.
Oh, no.
But don't worry, because if your gunnery gets disabled and you can't bring it back, you have warp-charged engines. After going on an all-ahead full special order, a Dark Mechanicum ship may elect to suffer a thruster's damaged critical hit. In exchange, it may reroll any or all of the dice for that all-ahead full special order. The critical hit's effect takes place after the ship's movement is completed. So thruster's damaged is the -5 to your speed and an additional hull point of damage. So now you're starting to get into crits that hurt more.
Yeah. But this is, it's situational, right? Because you're taking that extra point of damage, and that doesn't come back even if you fix thruster, the critical hit itself. But a lot of times, man, you run that all ahead full, and, you're a slaughter, and you're rolling 5d6, and you're absolutely going to get where your balls, I just rolled 5 1s.
Oops. Yay, you're the speed of a Nova now. Congratulations.
It's like, congratulations, you're now directly in perfect firing arc of 3 different enemy battleships. Mm-hmm. So sometimes it's just worth taking the extra point of damage and getting the reroll and getting the hell out, right? Yeah. Get you gone. And it's fantastic because you do the order, you do the roll, right? You already know what's going to happen to you if you take the dice that you were given, right? It's great for like convoy scenario, or not convoy, blockade run scenarios, right? Where you're just trying to run, and you don't run fast enough, far enough, but you've got hull points to spare. So why not take an extra one and get a little bit further? Or if you're trying to flee, right? Not that the gallant warriors of the Dark Mechanicum ever run,
yeah.
But if you're trying to disengage, and you go on all ahead full to, clear the battle space, and you roll 15 on your dice when you needed 30 to get out of the way. Well, not 30. 30 would never work. But, if you roll 7 when you wanted 15, you're going to die if you don't do it. Why not? Why not?
Yeah. And although we talk about this one as a go real fast option, and it is, there's always those instances where you go all ahead full, and you go a little too full, right? And you overshoot your target a little bit. Maybe you needed 24 centimeters, but you ended up with 30 somehow, and you've boosted past. They just waved at you through the window as you went by.
Yeah, you're out of arc.
Yeah, you can throw some deck slaves into the engines to appease the demons that live within, so that maybe they don't send your ship careening into the bad spot.
But speaking of throwing deck slaves into engines...
Ah, yes. Mass sacrifice. At the start of the turn, a Dark Mechanicum ship may elect to lose the ability to go under special orders for the remainder of the game. Bear in mind, lose the ability. So even if you're insane beyond measure, it's not that you're automatically failing a check. You can't make the check.
Mm-hmm.
Keep that in mind. For the remainder of the game, in exchange, it may automatically pass its first navigation check for celestial phenomena or ramming, and may reroll any of the dice to determine how far it emerges from a warp rift. Highly situational, but anyone who's ever flown into a warp rift while fighting over a space station to emerge right behind the enemy fleet and then tear it to shreds will tell you that's real good shit.
It's real good shit, Steven. It's real good shit.
No, I know.
Son of Dahl doesn't need sacrifices to perform at that level of excellence.
Yes.
But Dirty Chaos players do, so here we are.
Well, sometimes we just have Mark of Zinch. That's all we have to work with. Not the Dark Mechanicum Mass sacrifice, baby. Kill them all. But maybe don't kill them all the time.
Yeah, don't do it on turn
need
one.
Orders. Yeah, you do need orders.
But this is great because I tend to find that, especially for ramming is a late game thing for the most part, right? And even the Celestial Phenomena. You can re-roll the dice to determine how far you emerge from Warp Rift. That's great. But what's better is, again, if you've done whatever you wanted to do to accomplish your mission, you're trying to get home, and the quickest way out, and the way the enemy isn't going to follow you, is through that asteroid field. Mass sacrifice. Kill everybody. We're not going on special orders anymore because disengage isn't a special order. You're trying to leave. Another great one for blockade run, right? You're just trying to get out. Somebody's trying to get you. You can duck into that asteroid field real quick, and there you go, home free. Except for, a couple hundred deck slaves, but they are not people anyway.
Yeah, it's fine. Deck slaves aren't people. The Mechanicum doesn't even consider them crew.
It's true.
They are assets.
And because of that, you can also get sacrificial protection.
Yes, it's like mass sacrifice, but maybe you don't want to kill a mass amounts of sacrifice.
Yeah, maybe
A Dark Mechanicum ship may elect to suffer another whole point of damage in order to ignore an inflicted critical hit. And this is invoked before the result of the critical hit is determined. It's also not written here, but you absolutely cannot use sacrificial protection to negate the critical hits of violation of the machine spirit. You can't Etheric Howl and then just like, I'm going to suffer a whole point to have shields again.
Yeah,
That's not how it works.
You know why you can't? Pedantics that may be listening. Yeah. It's because Etheric Howl, or indeed any of the other random things that automatically do a critical hit to you, tell you the critical hit you're suffering, and therefore the critical hit has already been determined.
Yep.
So you can't sacrificial protection it.
Yep. But it is useful when you think that maybe you're about to get bridge smashed, or shields collapse, or get caught on fire.
Yeah, and I know what you're thinking. It's a random 2d6 roll. How would I know when that sort of thing was happening? Terminator boarding parties, anybody?
Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's not so random.
Yeah, sometimes the odds look real good. You're playing against a Gloriana, and, Bob Gulliman just showed up on your ship. Yep. Well, that's not concerning. The Night Haunter just showed up on your ship. Yeah, I went there.
Oh, no. Yeah, now you're in trouble. Well, unless you're a lion, I guess.
Not really. It's only... Perturabo shows up on your ship. There we go. We're getting there.
We found a Primarch who's dangerous.
Right? And you're going to take, D6 plus, 3 at that point? 2d6 plus 3? Egregiousness. Mm-hmm. You can do sacrificial protection, and it'll be fine. Just shoot the second officer and 100 people on the bridge. There's like 800 on the bridge. It's fine. And away you go.
And although you can't use it to block critical hits that are going to be caused by a certain result, like the other violation of the machine,
the automatic fire, things like that.
But you can use it for stuff like Enslaver Torpedoes. Beware the Enslaver Torpedoes.
Yep.
Even though they're going to do fire. It's designed to allow you to block things like that. But yeah, so now you can start to see between Violation of the Machine and Madness of the New Mechanicum, again, why there's an extra bad thing on that table. Because, say you get Insane Beyond Measure, right? And then you roll again. You get Insane Beyond Measure on your first one, so you're automatically passing Lock-On Ordnance, or Lock-On. So you decide, I'm going to gamble again. Cascade Cannons. Now your weapons batteries are doing extra critical hits. And so you roll up on your opponent with your one murder, right? Or your Crusader and your Gothic. And you overcharge your gunneries, and you rip out half the weapons batteries from somewhere else, and you fire them at the opponent, and you're locked on, because you automatically pass lock on. So you're re-rolling your hits, you're doing extra crits when you do crit, and you're throwing more bullets, making it more likely to crit.
And remember, you can mix and match, right? So you want to roll on the Gifts of the Omnissiah table and get augmented weapons relays for that free left shift on the gunnery table. You know, you can get some truly, truly ridiculous ships out of this. And again, on paper, they look ridiculous. You read a little into it, you play a couple games, you realize, one, these things are really expensive, and two, very specifically for Dark Mechanicum, you have to hurt yourself to be as nasty as you can be. And Battlefleet Gothic is not a game where you want to be damaged. You know, you don't want to suffer a shield collapse. You don't want to take a point of damage, because guess what? You suffer a whole point of damage. Guess what you do when you suffer a whole point of damage? You roll for critical hits.
Mm-hmm.
So you could do sacrificial protection, take a point of damage to ignore that, +4 2d6 critical hit, is coming your way. And, damn it, we killed all the engine stokers. Who's going to shovel our nuclear coal? Nobody? Thruster damage? Crap.
Great.
Right?
Yep.
So it giveth and it taketh away. And
speaking of taking away, the Mechanicum, Loyalist Mechanicums have Quest for Knowledge, right? You get the extra 1d6 on repairs, but then you also have to roll on a subplot table. Dark Mechanicum has the Quest for Dominion. Greedily hunting down new technologies and twisting them to their own ends, the Dark Mechanicum is quick to meld their abominable ingenuity to anything and everything that can withstand the strain.
Yep. And remember,
so like I said...
for both Dark Mech and regular Mech, right? Quest for Knowledge, Quest for Dominion. Even if you don't normally play subplots, even if you're a guy that, hey, me and my buddies just play one-off games, we don't do campaign, we don't do any of that nonsense, you have to roll. One, it's fun, right? You get an extra cool thing you're trying to accomplish, but it's a balance issue, right? Both of these fleets, and even the original GW one, were designed with rolling these things in mind. So do the thing.
They're, all things considered, Quest for Dominion and Quest for Knowledge are not entirely dissimilar. They have a couple of renamed things, but their number 1 option, Twisted Beyond Capacity, and their number 6 option, Heretical Systems, are identical. They just have different names. Number 1, Twisted Beyond Capacity. Roll a d6 for each Dark Mechanicum vessel. On a 1 or a 2, it suffers a random critical hit. Yay!
Hooray!
You must cripple or destroy more enemy ships than you lose. +1 if you do it, 0 if you don't, because it's the only one that punishes you, or that doesn't punish you.
Right. Fun fact, sacrificial protection won't help you here because the game hasn't started.
Yep. I see you pedantists out there just lurking, looking for loopholes. We're going to strangle you with them.
Aw.
Yeah, that's what happens.
Next up is Unsullied Hull. Select the Dark Mechanicum capital ship. This ship must end the game without being boarded or suffer damage from a hit-and-run attack.
Yeah.
+2, -1 renown for doing it and not doing it. Pretty standard, right? They got weird shit on here. Don't look.
Yeah.
Get out of my space house. Get off my space lawn.
Maybe your patron is Slanesh, and gotta have that perfect ship. Don't let none of them dirty non-believers onto it.
Right.
But also, maybe sometimes your patron is Nurgle, and the number 3 option is Scrap Code Propagation. Select a Dark Mechanicum capital ship. That ship must inflict must inflict damage equal to half of its starting hull points via ramming, boarding, or hit-and-run attacks. So, for most cruisers, at least 4 points of damage from ramming, boarding, or hit-and-run. It's +1 if you do it, it's -1 if you don't, because the grandfather is displeased. And no one wants to make Grandpa upset.
No. Everybody loves Grandpa.
Yeah.
It is kind of a tricky one, though, so... sometimes you try that ramming attack and realize they've done 4 points of damage to you and you've done 2 to them. And oh no, you're in a bad spot.
Uh-oh.
But, The gods are fickle. But it's good to have a patron, like a Neverborn patron. See what I did there? Neverborn patron is number 4. Select a Dark Mechanicum capital ship. That ship must not be crippled or destroyed, and it must cripple or destroy at least one enemy capital ship. And I'm staring at the typo right in front of me. Quick, call Jesse.
I know.
This is +1 or 0. You don't lose anything for not accomplishing it.
Which you would think is strange, given that you've made a Neverborn your patron, and they are not known for being forgiving creatures.
They're not.
But,
but the Neverborn is on the ship.
Yeah. It's not trapped there with you. You're trapped there with it.
Right? Like, it can toy with you later on a personal level, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't need to do it, right?
It's fine. It's fine. Maybe it wants a prize. Number 5. Nominate one enemy ship. You must cripple or destroy it, and if the ship suffers plasma drive overload or warp core implosion, no renown is gained or lost. But otherwise, it's +1 if you do it, -1 if you don't. Maybe the ship has weird technology, you want it. Maybe there's people on it that you need for slaves and servitors and Neverborn food.
Weird sacrifices.
Weird sacrifices, because, you killed all of your deck crew so that you could safely navigate a warp rift.
Yeah, now you got to go get more deck crew.
Now you need more.
Yeah, and while you don't actually get more renown for doing this, nominate the enemy capital ship, because nothing demoralizes your opponent more than the knowledge that his admiral is crucified to the outside of your hull.
Yep. Remember, today's admiral is tomorrow's air freshener.
Hooray!
It's hanging up there with a really, really, really old pine tree. And like I said, number 6 is heretical systems. It's the exact same thing as experimental systems.
Yep. Same all the things. For those of you that maybe didn't listen to last episode or forgotten, heretical systems, you get a D6, you roll 1 bonus and 1 detriment, right? A side effect. So for the side effects, you have weapons batteries and lance firepower reduced by 50%, rounding up. The ship could lose 2 hull points. The ship could lose 2 turrets. The ship must move an additional 5 centimeters before it can turn. It can lose 5 centimeters of speed, or dorsal or prow lances can only hit on rolls of 6. And then you have kind of the opposite effect of that for the improvements, right? All weapons except ordnance gain an additional 15 centimeter range. Ship gains an extra shield. Turrets reroll misses. Ship can turn an additional 45 degrees. All friendly vessels within 15 centimeters gain +1 leadership when the enemy is on special orders, in addition to the normal thing. Or, my personal favorite, dorsal or prow lances ignore shields on a roll of 6. Dorsal and prow lances, normally there's, between 1 and 3 of them. It's never going to do a ton of work. But, when the enemy's battleship is completely unhurt, not going to brace for those 3 lances from that Dauntless, and man, you get a bulkhead collapse critical hit because the lance went through shields and suddenly the battleship is crippled, right? So it's fun.
Oops. Yeah. We're going to take a brief break, and when we come back, we're going to do what we were told specifically not to, and open the Vault of Moravec.
Oh no!
Done! Bye, Regulus!
This episode of Lost Transmissions, part of the Remembrancers Retreat, is made once again possible by the support of our patrons, starting with our Legion Praetors Alex Self, Chap Lanissar, Chris Mack, Jacob Dillon, Garner.Tree of Woe, Joe for Music City Heresy, Luke Rizzuto, Matthew Boyce, Mr. Baldwick, Nicholas Quanga, Sar Luther, Taco Tuesday or Bus 22 Rock and Roll McDonald's, and What's Ligma. Our Legion Centurions, Aaron Maynard, Andrew N., Angry Boy, Dave Jones, Duncan, Ed, John Christensen, M. Tanzer, Gore Crow, Rena the Floof, Scott LeMay, and our Legion Sergeants, Agrippina, Emily O'Hare, Garrett Lowe, Hessam Syed, Jay DeSales, Jay Grammaticus, Mr. Sear, Nick Gillen, The Zoy, and What Do I Call Myself? Once again, If you enjoy our program and would like to support us, go over to patreon.com/RR30K podcast. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter at RR30K podcast, on Instagram at RR30K, and be sure to check out our website, rr30k.com, and this is where you can find the Battlefleet Heresy Compendium. Once again, thank you, and keep those dice rolling.
And we're back. Boy, that was weird. Austin's not dead, but he might wish that he was. His whole face has been replaced with a speaker grill. This is some Hellraiser weirdness. I wish someone had warned us against opening more of X Armory.
Steven, I think you stepped on a needle. You're in Southern Maryland.
Oh, maybe. I mean, look, I just wish somebody had warned me. More of X Armory. Kelbor Hall and his disciples plundered ancient, terrible secrets from the Vault of Moravec and other caches of forbidden technology. Both on tainted Earth and among sickened stars, vessels of the Dark Mechanicum gleefully turned their hideous new weapons upon their former allies. A Dark Mechanicum vessel that rolls at least once on the Madness of the New Mechanicum table may purchase upgrades from Moravec's Armory. No more than 2 upgrades from Moravec's Armory may be selected per ship, and no upgrade may be selected more than once. So you do kind of have to pay to play with Moravec's Armory here. You can't just play it super safe with your Dark Mechanicum fleet and roll on Gifts of the Omnissiah and just have your flagship do Madness of the New Mechanicum. If you want these toys, you got to pay the bills. You got to get the brand, put a little bit of something in the offering plate. Do not make change in the offering plate. It's frowned upon.
Deeply disrespectful.
Yes. So as a matter of course, these are not available to just quote-unquote trader Mechanicum. You have to be spooky.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not to say that Dark Mechanicum fleets don't have access to the Armories of Mars upgrades as well, the Specialist Torpedoes, the Fighter Bombers, the Orbital Mines. They have all of that. This is just exclusive stuff for them, their freaky little boys club. The first thing is girls or gender indeterminable.
Because Lord knows that's a thing, especially for the Dark Mechanicum.
Especially for the Dark Mechanicum.
Private parts were replaced by machine parts that were replaced by demon parts. Who knows what pronouns you're using?
Yep. So the first thing that they have access to is 3 special exclusive types of Specialist Torpedoes. So any Dark Mechanicum capital ship with torpedo capacity may be equipped with Specialist Torpedoes for 20 points, for salvos with a strength of 6 or less, or 30 points for salvos greater than 6. These may be fired once per game and are resupplied automatically every game in a campaign setting. No ship may be equipped with more than 1 type of Specialist Torpedo unless it is explicitly stated in their rules, and no more than 25% of eligible ships to a minimum of 1 may be equipped with Vortex Torpedoes. So Dark Mechanicum still have access to all those other Specialist Torpedoes, the Melta, the Vortex.
Yeah, this stacks on. Right. It's not you can have this at 25% and the normal ones at 25%.
Yep.
You get to pick your poison.
The first one is another thing that went through a few rewrites a couple of times, because we just, for the life of us, we had this cool idea, but we could not figure out how to make it work. They're called Enslaver Torpedoes. Enslaver Torpedoes should be the first weapon, or the first torpedoes that you move in the ordnance phase, kind of like how if you have a Nova Cannon, those have to be fired first in the shooting phase. Enslaver Torpedoes should be moved first. Well, not should be, have to be moved first in the ordnance phase, and you'll see why. The first ship an Enslaver Torpedo wave hits, including a wave which is negated via bracer impact, cannot use its turrets to fire on other torpedoes during this ordnance phase. Additionally, any torpedo wave within the Enslaver wave's 30 centimeter movement value of the targeted ship may make up to a 45-degree turn prior to their movement, so long as this turn would enable them to contact the targeted ship in the ordnance phase. These are torpedoes that, when fired, they have a malignant signal that grabs other torpedoes and takes them with them, so that instead of hitting 3 at a time, 2 at a time, 10 at a time, they hit all 15 at once. It's one wave for all intents and purposes, and that's why the ship in question cannot fire its turrets at successive waves. Normally you fire turrets at each individual wave of torpedoes. If you get hit by Enslaver Torpedoes, no such luck for you.
Yeah, because technically what's happening, in the real world,
It's abstracted.
Is the Enslaver Torpedoes sense the enemy ship, 4 light seconds ahead, or, the distance between the Earth to the moon. I don't know what that is in light seconds. And say, they reach out, they find all the other friendly torpedoes, and via, malignant scrap code, demonology, nurglings on the side pushing, I don't know.
They get little scuba masks, they're swimming.
Can turn those torpedoes and mess with their timing enough that they all collide together, which is great. It really is. Because a lot of times, especially if you've got ordnance, attack craft running around, right? Because I feel like most of the time, when confronted with a wave of torpedoes or a wave of, two fighters, 2 bombers, I'm going to put my turrets on the fighters, right? But if I let the Enslaver Torpedoes hit me, suddenly it's not a wave of 6 torpedoes or 3 or however many. It's a wave of however many torpedoes happen to be able to turn 45 degrees and smack into me all at once. Not good. Because remember, they have to hit, right? So it's not just contact the ship and, turrets fire and the torpedoes might score. It's actually hitting the enemy ship that causes this all to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if you miss, oops.
If you miss with all of them, or, there's only 2 left in the wave and the turrets get both, then you're SOL'd.
Suck less.
But the upside is so good because it means you can fire a wider spread, right? So if you got, 3 Imperial cruisers, a Lunar, a Mars, a Dictator, and the Dictator is in the center and has Enslaver torpedoes, the Lunar and the Gothic on either side can still launch their spread apart, right, to disrupt the enemy movement, and then can still turn inboard and smack into the same target, which is delightful.
But it is a one trick. You can only do it once.
Yes, like all specialist torpedoes, they are just a one-trick pony. But a great trick. Another great trick is Graviton Torpedoes. Now, these are only 20 centimeter speed, right? They're only 20 centimeter speed, so they're best used in the shotgun approach, where the enemy doesn't have a chance to move out of the way. However, when these torpedoes inflict a critical hit, but before the result is determined, roll another d6. On a 1, 2, 3, or 4, they automatically inflict bulkhead collapse. On a 5 or 6, they inflict a hull breach. So if you score a critical hit, you're essentially guaranteed the 11 or 12 result.
Yep, it's real rude. In addition to the damage you already did.
Yeah, so you do that 1 point, you roll that critical hit, you're getting it. You're getting an extra D3 or an extra D6 of damage. It is wildly good. Again, it's one use only. You can't have multiples. So, you rolls your dice and you takes your chances. But God, what a chance, right?
Yeah. And before you question, well, where the hell did these come from? There's a really cool scene, again, in Solar War, when the Iron Warriors are coming out of a warp rift, and they're attacking the orbital stations around Pluto, and it's just wave after wave of Graviton torpedoes, and each one that hits, you see these orbital platforms just crumple like tin cans and fall out of Pluto's orbit, and they're gone.
Like all their bulkheads are collapsing, or perhaps they've suffered hull breaches.
Yeah. And I thought, Man, that sounds so cool. I want to do that to somebody's ships. And so I wrote rules that allowed me to.
And now we can.
And now we can.
But again,
Through that canning victory.
it's a one trick pony, right? You try it once. If you score no critical hits with them, man, that's just too bad.
And they don't do anything special if you just hit. You got to get the crits. So, but I'll tell you what does do special stuff if all it does is hit, and that's scrap code torpedoes. Ships suffering a hit from scrap code torpedoes suffer further debilitation until the end of their next activation, based on the number of hits suffered, in addition to all other damage. These effects are cumulative, meaning that each successive bracket inflicts the previous bracket's damage as well. The large amount of hostile signals coming from these weapons makes them easier to track and shoot down. Turrets hit these torpedoes on a 3-up, and if you're using H-33 or WR-33 rules, that's Warp Rift 33, for attack craft, fighters may reroll results of 1 when trying to hit these torpedoes. Scrap code torpedoes are kind of like Cascade Cannons in torpedo form. So if they do 1 hit at all, target's movement is reduced by 5 centimeters. If they do 2 hits, target's movement is reduced by 5 centimeters, and all weapons' firepower values and turrets are halved, rounding down. And if they do 3 or more hits, they do those previous 2 things, and all shields are halved, rounding down. Nova cannons and other specialist weapons may not be fired. When we designed the scrap code torpedoes, I love it when, I don't love it because it happens to me too often to truly love it, but it's great when Austin rolls up on a target and just shotguns torpedoes into it, and the other guy's like, well, I'm going to brace because that's 12 torpedoes, 6 torpedoes, however many torpedoes, and I don't want to take all of that. So I brace, and then all the torpedoes miss. But it doesn't matter. They did their job. You're braced.
Yep, that's a longtime Imperial Navy player for you.
Uh-huh.
You're not trying to kill people with those torpedoes. You're trying to have all their damage.
Yep. So that's what I wanted to do. Scrap code torpedoes do the same thing. Statistically, they'll get 1 or 2 hits, which kind of feels like crippling a cruiser. Even if it's not, it's just crippled for a turn, for all intents and purposes. 5 centimeters of speed lost, weapons values, and turrets halved. Like, it's a good little, get in there, do the thing. And then they still do 2 whole points of damage while they're there, which might do more criticals.
Yeah. And of course, if you do get the lucky 3-up damage, you screw with their shields. They can't fire Nova cannons or things like that. But what I really like about this is, again, as a longtime BFG player, if I know there's, a 2-fighter, 2-bomber wave out there, and I know that that's, it's aimed for my cruiser, and 6 torpedoes are aimed at my cruiser, I'm always going to shoot the bombers. I always am. So if you know that about your opponent, and you put the scrap code torpedoes in first, that's another whole line of questioning, right? Like, do I fire the turrets at the torpedoes, knowing that if they hit me twice, I'm only going to have half the amount of turrets to try and shoot down those fighters and bombers anyway? Or do I, hopefully weather the blow? I don't know what I would do. Which I feel is a sign of interesting rules. And again, like scrap code torpedoes, I got to say, this is one of the things that Steven came up with that I was just like, oh yeah, this seems delightful. Don't ever take them against me. Like they felt right. We play tested a couple of times. They played right. It was delightful.
Yeah. And we mostly talk about these sorts of things in the context of the quote-unquote Imperial Chaos and Space Marine ships. But if you are, playing against enemies of the Imperium, like Eldar, for instance, right? And you somehow manage to catch an Eldar cruiser and you smack them with Graviton Torpedoes, well, Eldar suffer crits on 4s, baby. That ship is gone.
They have a bad time. If you get Eldar with Graviton Torpedoes, just good night.
Yep, and orcs already have a variety of problems because they were never meant to go to space. And you smack into those guys with scrap code torpedoes, and you hit him enough times to cause him all sorts of trouble. Well, just watch that ramshackle thing careen through space, trailing smoke.
I mean, it was doing that
Hilarious.
anyway, but, more smoke.
Yeah. Yes. More smoke.
Suddenly,
more careening.
the white smoke is black smoke. The black smoke is white smoke. Everybody's got problems.
Yeah. There's yellow smoke for some reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But speaking of things that'll give you problems, slaughter thralls.
Oh, no.
Vat-grown monsters, never-born infused automata, and Skitarii augmented with prescribed technology are just a few examples of the terrible combat creatures employed by the Dark Mechanicum. If this vessel has launch bays and or torpedoes, it gains the ability to launch shark assault boats and or boarding torpedoes, respectively, for 5 points. So if you can do both, Dictator, 5 points to upgrade the torpedoes, 5 to upgrade the assault boats, and adds +1 to all its hit and run attacks. For an additional 10 points, it may add an additional 50% of its current hull points, rounded up, to its boarding actions. So a ship with 8 hull points would count as 12 for the purposes of boarding actions. This is a fairly standard, Mark of Khorne meets Space Marine upgrade. It represents, as I said just a minute ago, the innumerable ways which the new Mechanicum can make really like things you don't want to meet in a ship's corridor.
Yeah, if you remember the scene from Mechanicum at the Magma City when the last of House Tyren is defending the bridge. No, it's an attack. Sorry, it's a sally. And they're just wading through sea of corrupted servitors and Skitarii and thralls. Those things were bad news to knights on open ground. Imagine how terrible they are in the confines of a ship.
Yeah, hey, like... gun hauler, we've given you a 3-foot-long wrench and want you to hold this corridor until your dying breath. It won't be too long now. That thing with too many tentacles and a ray gun, it's right here.
Yeah, yeah. Earlier in the last episode, we talked about how the Mechanicum isn't really great when it comes to getting boarded, getting hit and run, doing their own hit and runs. Well, maybe you want to be great at it, so you buy Slaughter Thralls. Just 600 sleeping, demon-infused Ursarax in a boarding torpedo.
It'll be fine.
For somebody, yes. The next one is Ectoplasmic Lances, a pulsing laser of ghost light. This weapon passes through void shields without sight or sound before slamming into the ships beyond with a wailing shriek. Any ship with lance batteries may upgrade any or all of them to Ectoplasmic Lances for 10 points per point of strength. So say the Desolator has 4 lances on each side, you can upgrade both for 80 points. The firepower value of the lance battery is then halved, rounding up, but the weapon ignores shields. The point cost of this weapon is calculated before the firepower value is reduced. Hoo boy! A 50% chance to just do hull point damage? Yes, please.
Yeah, it makes that Gothic more interesting, right? Like, it's an 80-point upgrade. It's not for kids. But also, it's a couple of 50, just going straight through shields. Or just, it's any or all, right? So if you want to get real tricky, you can have your Gothic and just do it to the port lances. Right? Because maybe, it's running in a squadron. You don't have the points to upgrade a lot of stuff. But you know what? Hey, I got 40 spare points. We're going to upgrade the port lances, and it'll run with the lunar on its starboard side, so it can put its lances in to whatever the lunar's shooting at, because the lunar will probably drop the shields down. And then I have my other lances that'll fire the other direction at stuff that has full shields, and that'll be fun.
Yeah.
I will say, though, I'm going to take a pause to discuss lasers. We said here that they pass through shields without sight or sound. 1, there's no sound in space. And 2, if your laser's properly calibrated, it shouldn't make a visible light. God!
Well, I guess the Imperial Guard is just real bad at calling their equipment.
That's why it's only strength 3.
It's an angry flashlight, but it's one of those cheap non-maglite flashlights. This is a maglite.
Have you ever seen somebody shoot a laser at something? I have. You know what it does? No sight. Anyway, moving along.
We'll take it up with the author, I guess. I don't know. Oh, wait a second. I'm the author.
God damn it.
Yeah.
We'll take it up with GW.
This was a real fun upgrade to put on the Devastation cruiser, which is the Chaos Carrier Lance Harasser. It has two 60-centimeter lances on its port and starboard side, while also launching ordnance. And it just sat there, kind of in the backfield, cruising along, pumping out fighters and bombers to do fighter and bomber things. And every once in a while, it would look at something and just take a whole point from it.
Mm-hmm. This is also a fun one for people with more sense of style than sense of tactical soundness to do to your escort squadrons. Because you can do it to a Firestorm frigate. And if you do it to each frigate, you know, you have like 3 Firestorms, like, all right, like whatever.
Well, I hate to get ahead of you, but escorts cannot benefit from Moravec's armory, because in order to do so, they have to roll
damn it, you have to have the madness of the new Mechanicum.
Mechanicum.
What am I doing? It's like I didn't even read these rules.
Yeah, man, you should get with the guy who wrote them.
Fuck, I got real excited for a second and forgot what I was doing with my own damn rules.
Oh, no. Escorts get left out of the fun.
It's true. It's true. You have to lose your mind.
Why we did that, and it's mostly to make sure that the new Mechanicum, for all the unpredictability throughout their fleet, that they do have a core of ships that they can rely on to not get screwed over by their greed for cool upgrades.
And a little bit of balance issue, right? Because there are some things that are running around that are, you know, okay on a capital ship that are just ridiculous on an escort, and vice versa. It's frankly easier to do it this way.
Yes. The last two things in Moravec's armory are... They were kind of weird, but they were a lot of fun to write and a lot of fun to playtest.
It's true. The first one, well, I guess the fourth one.
Fourth one? Yeah.
Yeah.
The second to last one
is Enslaver Cogitator. Using machine senses stretched beyond the realm of the visible and the tangible, the Dark Mechanicum can bring about convergences of things and places with a precision that is, on a factual level, well beyond witchcraft. Remember, science is nothing but continually getting things wrong. Just saying. That's what the scientific method is all about. Any Dark Mechanicum capital ship may purchase an Enslaver Cogitator for 30 points. During the shooting phase, friendly ships within 45 centimeters may add one of their weapons battery or lance systems that is in range and in firing arc to this ship's salvo as if they were a squadron, so long as the weapon system has not been fired already that turn. Each ship, including the enslaving ship, can only be affected by this rule once per turn. Ships affected by the enslaver may not fire the same weapon again in their own shooting phase activation.
Neat.
So, again, if you have weapons batteries and you think, man, you know what's great about weapons batteries? All those shots. You know what sucks is that if that ship fires weapons batteries and does a point to the shields, there'll be a blast marker in the way. No longer, my friend. No longer. When that other ship shoots, will it necessarily have to fire through a blast marker? You just do this. Enslaver Cogitator, 30 points. Mesh all of your weapons battery fire into insane precision that they all arrive in the same quarter second of each other and ruin your opponent's whole day.
Yeah, it's a nice little way to go to grab a squadron of battery escorts, just hijack their shooting phase, and add, say it's 4 swords, That's how many? 20 weapons batteries? No, it's 16. 16 weapons batteries because they have 4 each. Yeah. 4 swords that are just nearby, lurking. You say, hey, you guys, fire on my mark. And they're like, okay, boss. And bam, another 16 weapons batteries added to the pile.
Yeah. Or again,
no degradation necessary.
Not to pick on that poor Gothic, but that Gothic wants to unload all of its lances. And, oh, look, a squadron of Novas that happen to be hanging out nearby. Or 5 more lances. Just have a bad time.
Lances for everybody. Or maybe, you're a lunar, right? And you're kind of, or you want to be a lunar. You have weapons batteries or you have lances, but you don't have both. But you wish you had both. So you're a Gothic and you want to fire at a target, but it still has shields. Hey, swords, fire, go. So you add weapons batteries to it, you bring down the shields, and now suddenly you've got a clear shot for lances.
That's true. It's a fun time.
Now, a note on the Enslaver Cogitator is that it's somewhat unique in the rule set, in that it's not designed for this particular rule set. The Enslaver Cogitator is actually designed for the alternating activation rules. And if we can go a little further afield for a moment, if you play Titanicus at all, and you play a homebrew Legio using the defensive riser rules, there is a Legion trait called Noble Lineage, where you can pair up Titans and they act in a squadron. And if you've played Titanicus at all, you know that squadrons of Titans activate all together. And now you can see where the benefit of that is in Battlefleet Gothic, is if you, one ship, need to do something, and you can't afford for your opponent to have an activation between the things you need to do, Enslaver Cogitator. Grab another ship, you're a squadron, you activate together, link arms, skip on down to a Blazing Hulk.
Yep, it is a great time. But speaking of time, we are running short, or I guess long. So we'll go ahead and have Stephen tell us about the Corpuscant Laser, which is another thing that came to us via the great Dan Abnett and Salvation's Reach.
Yes, this is the last item in Moravec's armory, and it'll be the last thing we talk about this episode. If you remember in Salvation's Reach, Tormageddon Monstrum Rex had a laser weapon that could crack, kind of like a whip, and just shear ships in half. Not entirely unlike gauze weapons on the Necron Monolith, I guess. And then if you remember in Solar War, there's a point where a ship that isn't even... All Battlefleet Gothic battles take place outside of visual range. This ship was outside of visual range. It was so far away, but just had this laser weapon that they fired and just drug across the battle space, hitting everything in the way. The Corpuscant Laser is based on both of those weapons. Rare and poorly understood, these exotic beam weapons are devastating artillery pieces at long range, but can be reconfigured to inflict horrendous damage at close range, cracking open starship hulls with ease. This weapon is mounted on the dorsal location for 40 points and replaces any weapon that was previously located there. And it may only fire in the front arc. This weapon may not be selected by any vessel with a Nova cannon. This weapon may not be fired if the ship is crippled. Under Brace for Impact, burn retros, all ahead full, or come to new heading special orders. The Corpuscant Laser actually has two modes of fire. It has long range and short range, and plays a little bit like the older guess range Nova Cannon. So to fire at long range, you guess and declare 2 points of distance between 15 centimeters and 100 centimeters away from the firing ship.
180 centimeters.
180. So you draw a line 1 centimeter thick between those 2 points. Any unit, friend or foe, with a base overlapped by the line suffers 2d3 hits. Ordnance is hit and destroyed on a d6 roll of 4. Resilient ordnance, such as Thunderhawks, may still make its customary 4-up save where applicable. So this is the fire at a point and just move on down the line formation. Like I said, kind of based off Nova Cannons in the sense that you have to guess the range. But if you zero in both of those points, you can really do some damage as you just nail every ship in a line. Great for pulling apart escort squadrons. Great for that classic Gothic lunar combo. They're right there. They're right next to each other. Just kill them both.
And I will say, guess and declare 2 points of distance between 15 and 180 centimeters isn't, I'm going to put my finger down here and my finger down there, and as long as both of those points are between 15 and 180 centimeters, that's the line. No. You pick a heading and you say 45 centimeters out, and then you pick another heading and go 15 centimeters out, and whatever's between that line. Mm-hmm. So it is clumsy. I'm not to toot my own horn. I've been playing war games since I was 11. I'm now, I've been doing this for more than 20 years. I'm very good at guess ranging.
Can attest. It's true. He is.
I still have problems making this work. So even though that 2d3 hits, that'll smack a cruiser, right? That's pretty good bet of crippling it. It is hard trick to pull off, especially at the longer ranges. So be not afraid, as long as you don't have ships stacked directly behind each other. That's where it gets concerning.
Yes. It isn't written here, but it should bear noting that, like the Nova Cannon, this weapon should be fired first. No firing off your 60-centimeter lances to try and get an eyeball on where to put those 2 points. The second way to shoot it is short range. Place the Nova Cannon template with the hole no more than 15 centimeters away from the firing ship and in the front arc. Any unit, friend or foe, with a base overlapped by the front half of the template suffers D3 hits. Ordnance is hit and destroyed on a D6 roll of 4. Shields and resilient ordnance offer no defense from these hits. So this is that laser crack that just rips a ship in half right off the bat. So you got your little Nova Cannon base. And if you have one of those Nova Cannon templates that doubles as a compass, right, without having to flip it over, it's that first, you have an entire 180 degrees to hit stuff with. But you just go 15 centimeters away. It's half the range of standard weapons batteries. And you aim it, and you just blast them.
Yep, and you should note that this is not a guess weapon. 15 centimeters or less, that's, being able to look out your window and see somebody. It's pistol range in this. We didn't feel the need to make you guess because, it's so close you can reach out and touch them. And you do.
Will. With lasers.
Yeah, God, so that's Corpuscant Laser. We have talked to you guys for an hour and a half on this subject, which is longer than we thought. So I will leave you with this. Faithful, there is no greater blasphemy against the machine than the impersonation of its divinity. The Emperor, in his boundless arrogance, misled us. He glamored even our most learned magi with his lies, taking for himself the mantle of Omnissiah, all the while shackling great Mars to frail, ailing Terra. The deceiver gladly drank deep of our knowledge and exhausted our forges in his never-to-be-sated appetite for dominion of all things. And in return, he dared command us in what sacred knowledge we were allowed to pursue. He chained us to his will with his treaties and his decrees and his denial of our divine purpose. No more. Great Horus is a true ally of Mars, and we will burn his foes from our domains with laser and plasma and macro cannon down to toothless chain blades if we must. With me, faithful, for the War Master, for sacred Mars.
Aw, yeah. Don't worry, folks. We'll talk about ships soon. Until then, good hunting.